So that's a mono BBC recording. And the BBC is most famous for broadcasting television programmes or radio programmes. But my normal interest in the BBC is speakers, or speakers that were inspired by the BBC designs. That's what we're going to talk about today. First of all, let's travel back in time to 1924. In 1924, a guy called Cyril French started the company Celestion. And in 1928, he started making these radio extension speakers. And you can bet your bottom dollar some BBC broadcasts were played through these, because there's been many of them made over the years. Move forward in time a little bit, and Celestion started making this unit, the GEC Presence unit, for General Electric Company. And over time, this modified into the Celestion HF1300, which features on many BBC designs. So what I'm going to talk about today is two loudspeakers that I have reviewed before, but are both inspired by the BBC designs. And what we have to begin with is the Spendor Sp1, which has their polypropylene bass driver, the Celestion HF1300, and the Coles Super Tweeter. The Coles Super Tweeter, I believe, actually started life as a microphone diaphragm, so that's got its own history attached to it. And the other ones are my Rogers Studio 1A, which I reviewed quite recently. They also have a polypropylene cone and a Celestion 1.25 inch aluminium dome tweeter. They both have nearly identical cabinet volumes, approximately 40 litres. They're both lossy cabinets, they both have bitumen lined panels inside them, they're both ported, and I wondered what they sounded like, even though they're very similar and are all inspired by BBC designs. I wondered how they actually sounded. So let's have a chat about them. So just quickly on this lossiness. There's similar resonance there, but it's not exactly the same. And that's for a couple of different reasons. I believe that this is a slightly different wood. This is probably birch ply, and I think this is MDF. Also, the Spendor is a true lossy cabinet because the front baffle is screwed on and the rear baffle is screwed on. I can't see any screw holes in the Rogers. They might be hidden under these grill pegs, but I think these are a sealed up cabinet, so there is a slight difference in resonance. Also, this has a larger port, so the resonance wouldn't be exactly the same anyway. Now, just a little bit more about Bechstein as a material, because this has its own history as well. So Bechstein is what the BBC started using in many of their designs. So the LS35A has a Bechstein cone, although that was designed by Kef. Malcolm Jones designed that. The Spendor BC1 was independently developed by Spencer Hughes, and Bechstein had a quality to it that the BBC realised. But if you move a little bit further forward in time, Dudley Harwood had, we're pretty sure, figured out a way of using polypropylene. Now, if you go on the www.ls35a.com, which is run by Paul Watton, he's the son of Maurice Watton, who worked for the BBC Designs Department and actually, as part of a team, got the LS35 to the LS35A, made it manufacturable, if you like, so it could be put out to license and made by various other companies. If you go on his website, there's a brilliant history of Rogers hidden in the menus there. If you filter through that and read the history of Rogers, it's fascinating. And a part that I found really fascinating was, in the article, the owner of Rogers at the time was very concerned that the newly formed Chartwell company, which was a load of ex-BBC engineers, had the means to tool and manufacture not only Bechstein cones, but polypropylene cones as well. And it's a really interesting article. Definitely go and hunt that out and read it. It's well worth a read. And he explains how Rogers as a company was concerned that this new upstart company of ex-BBC engineers were able to develop this new wonder material, polypropylene. And then out of the blue comes the Mission 770, and it's got a polypropylene cone. And weirdly, that speaker's just made a comeback, and I'd love to hear a set. But back to the original one. So the 770 hits the market, and it was a very popular loudspeaker. This wonder material had taken the world by storm. And poor old Rogers felt possibly like they were sort of stuck in the mud. Eventually, obviously, they did start developing polypropylene cones, because the Studio 1A has a polypropylene cone. So does the Spendor. But the difference is that's a hand-doped cone on the Spendor to smooth out the frequency response. It's doped by hand, as where the Rogers isn't. Now, there is a slight time difference between these two. I'd put the Spendor at approximately 1985, and believe it or not, they were £750. In 1985, that would have been a lot of money. About 1987 is where I put the Rogers Studio 1As. I can't find an online price for them, but they would have probably been similar amount of money. Anyway, that's a little bit of the history, and it's a fascinating history. We've talked about how similar the cabinets are, how they're BBC inspired with their lossy sidewalls and bitumen lined panels, and the material is derivative of something else that the BBC was working on, which is polypropylene. So let's put them side by side as a comparison and see how these very similar, not only in time period, in terms of internal volume, in terms of cone materials, let's see how they differ in sound, because I think this is going to be interesting. Okay, Spendor Sp1, incredible bass, very deep, soft bass, rolling bass, very, very nice on that sort of genre of music. Crossing over to the HF, or certainly the lower HF, the HF 1300 is displaying mild cupped hands kind of scenario. But that is reminiscent of their specific tonal characteristic, that on voice they're very, very pleasant. Going up to the extreme HF, that Coles Super Tweeter is doing its job. It's very clean, very clear, crisp, and very audible. Very nice to listen to. I did complain on another video about them of slight port chuffing. That wasn't actually detectable this time, and it might be because I left the grills in place. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I didn't detect any obvious chuffing this time round. Moving over to the Rogers, the bass was deep, not quite as obvious, and the HF was a different kind of level. It was very crisp, very clean, very detailed. I would say that if you listen to those loudspeakers at elevated listening levels for extended periods of time, you would potentially find that HF a little bit fatiguing. But in a comparison between the two, they're very similar designed loudspeakers, but sound quite different, to be honest with you. And that's really what you want from two brands. You don't want something that sounds exactly the same. You want to be able to choose a speaker that suits your tastes. And between the two, the Rogers and the Spendor, I would say the Spendor was overall warmer sounding, a little bit more laid back. Rogers was just a little bit more forward presented, and possibly timing just a little bit better, but very enjoyable. Just for the heck of it, I chucked in a quick clip of my Spendor Classic 2.3s that, although they were designed in 2017, also have a BBC style lossy cabinet. They are inspired by years and years and years of those BBC designs. I hope this video has been interesting. I've enjoyed doing it. I enjoy shooting all of the videos. It's just a little bit warm, so I'm gonna call it a day, pack all this mess away and sit back and have a listen to whichever pair of speakers I decide to listen to for the rest of the day. Take care, guys. Catch up with you soon.